just introducing Dr. David. He'll share a little bit more about himself. What I have here is just some information from his website. I've known Dr. David now for a year now. It's just amazing how time has just went by so quickly. But he spoke to, how we met was through another professional contact, and he spoke to MSRN, which is another professional organization that I'm the president of, that really focuses on the senior market. So I thought it would be great for Dr. David to come in and speak to this group, because it's all about, just our body and our brain, and everything impacts, what we do, how we think, how our brains are, how we feel. And again, when it goes back to the divorce component, it's very challenging, I mean, Scott, you can, you're meeting with clients every day, and they're sharing, just everything that they're going through. And sometimes, it's hard to know what to do. So we're excited that Dr. David is here to share his knowledge and his wisdom. He has, just according, I'm going to just read a little bit here, but so he has served as both the medical director and the executive director for the operations of Brain and Body Solutions LLC and Brain and Body Foundation Inc., which is, they're both, one is located in the U.S. and one in Nigeria. The Brain and Body Solutions LLC is Integrated Health Center in Nigeria, and the Brain and Body Foundation is an organization established to focus on educating the public on relevant health issues, right? So providing safe and innovative solutions to health conditions that is affecting the brain and the body, and also elevating the suffering of medically fragile children, including those been diagnosed with severe brain disorders, genetic disorders, and other things. So one of the charity's primary goals is to take the advances of the Western world and apply them to the resource of poor communities such as those in Africa and other developing nations around the world. And Dr. David's extensive experience on TV, radio, large speaking engagements enables him to deliver a wealth of knowledge on the challenges associated with Alzheimer's, especially those in the Black community. So I read that only because he's very involved with just in his profession. He's one of the experts. He's extremely educated, and he has tremendous knowledge of what's happening in different countries. Sometimes we live in our own little bubble and we see what's going on here. And it's just nice to have his experience and to share what he has seen, because now he kind of ties it back to the educational piece that is needed for us to know. So with that, let's give him a warm welcome and let him just kind of do his magic for today's session. So thank you. Welcome, David.
All right, thank you very much, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Just want to say a big thank you. Just want to add a few things to what Christina said. She was the first one to actually take a chance on me, really. Prior to this, I wasn't really out there. I wasn't really speaking. I didn't know how to get out there to share the message I felt I had. Someone introduced me to someone else, who eventually introduced me to Christina. And so, Christina, yours was, MSRN was the first networking group that I actually spoke at ever in Baltimore. So thank you and that's that's one meeting introduced me to so many other people, and since then I've been speaking in so many different places. So thank you again for taking a chance on me. All right, so yes, I will be talking about stress on the brain, but my mission really, I mean, I don't know who's in Nigeria, they will say, who sent you? I mean, once they see someone who has this really challenging job that he's doing, it's like, you could have done something else. Who sent you to do this? But my mission really is to educate people on how to take care of their brains. How to, from what I've seen, most people don't. If you ask the average person, how do you prevent a heart attack? Or how do you prevent heart disease? Yeah, they'll say a few things. They'll rest more, exercise more, eat less, a few generic stuff like that. I mean, it's mostly useless, but at least they have an answer, right? But when you ask them about how to prevent dementia, blank stares, deer in the headlines. Nothing, nada. They don't know what to say, even those who have lived through it. Now we're seeing that it is literally exploding. Dementia is exploding all over the world, and it's getting worse and worse in third world countries. So we are looking to the US for answers. And if all we're hearing is, well, we're waiting for that one magical drug that's gonna save us all, and once we purchase it and we give it to you, you're gonna be fine. But that doesn't help someone from Nigeria or any other third world country because obviously not gonna be able to afford it. And number two, you're still gonna need the experts to administer it. So we need something that is practical. But more importantly, we need something that is practical for the lay person to know and do to prevent dementia in the first place. There's no way we're going to be able to handle it just by waiting for a drug. So I thank you again for this opportunity. So I will say a little bit about dementia and then get into stress and all that, because the thing about stress, the stress that comes from trauma, be it physical or emotional, psychological, which obviously divorce may involve all three kinds of trauma, right? The thing about, can you take orders?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got your order.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Or just keep going or wait for the rest? Okay, cool. All right. So the thing about stress is that it makes the brain more vulnerable to injury further down the road. That could be a year later, it could be 2 years later, it could be decades later. So, and what we now are finding out is that if you don't, yes ma'am?
I'm so sorry. What's your side? Did you want fries?
We also have like tater tots, sweet potato waffle fries, coleslaw, onion rings.
Sweet potato? Yes, sweet potato?
Sweet potato waffle fries? Is that okay?
That works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Don't tell anybody I took this.
That's great food. Talking about burnt health, some fried food.
That'll help. Process faster.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, stress, especially chronic stress, as psychologists, obviously you will know this, is that it's a grind on the brain. And if you don't do something about it quickly enough, it just continues to fester and grow and grow and grow through the decades. So a lot needs to be done where that's concerned. That's an outline. There's a few things about myself. She mentioned Brain and Body Foundation. Both organizations are based in Nigeria. Both organizations are based in the US. But the reason we founded the Brain and Body Foundation was because we were seeing so many kids with brain disorders, everything from cerebral palsy to Down syndrome and so on, and now sickle cell disease. And there was no one really helping them. So we decided to figure out a way to help these kids without, like I said, without the technology, without the experts, without the hospitals that we all take for granted over here, especially in Baltimore where there's Johns Hopkins and all these great hospitals. And we had to figure out from the grassroots, using first principles. That's become a dirty word these days, but first principles, how to fix these problems. And it's going to have bearing on what we're talking about, where the brain and dementia and stress are concerned. We had to figure out how the brain actually works, what exactly the brain needs to work. We don't settle that first. We're going to just get pulled and tossed wherever. But we need to know, what does my brain need, and how best can I support it? How best can I provide those needs to the brain? And once you think about it from those perspectives, it makes it easier to know what to do when you're in a situation like a stressful divorce situation, brain trauma, dementia, dealing with a loved one who has dementia or stroke or something like that. So that will be helpful. And I feel that is being lost in this whole modern world where everybody's thinking about the best technology. And I don't mean to knock technology. I don't mean to knock medical advancements, but we can't leave the fundamentals behind. They have to be incorporated into whatever new gizmo that we're finding out about. So we, over a period of time, we found out that simply giving certain nutrients that the brain needs could go a long way to fixing major problems. In fact, we were told that these problems could not be fixed. We've been trained, we're still being trained in medical school, that certain things cannot happen. For instance, you've all heard that once the brain has lost brain cells, you never get them back. The brain cannot make new brain cells. That's been debunked over a decade ago, but they're still teaching that in medical school. I actually know that. And so, what happens when you have a doctor who's been trained that way, and then he has a patient who has maybe had a stroke? Well, all he's going to say is, well, we'll just hope and pray. We're going to do the physical therapy. We'll treat any seizures, any other things. They almost never talk about supplements or nutrients or diets. And they'll say we just hope and pray. Hopefully he's going to have, good genes that will carry him through, and just wait 6 months, 12 months from now. Whatever happens after 12 months, that's it for life, all right? So it's very, very, very little by way of hope. But we found out that that is simply not true. There's a lot that can be done. So we, like I said, we started using nutrients, we started getting really great results. Now, eventually we started having people with dementia coming to us, and we started basically applying the same principles. And I think this is important. Because we started with kids, we came from a totally different mindset than the average doctor who started with, went in straight to treating dementia. We knew what could work, and we knew what was safe. And we also expected things to happen much more quickly. Over here, they say you gotta wait for 3 months to see any sign of improvements or slowing down. Right now, when we talk about dementia, we don't talk about improvements, we talk about how can we slow the progression of the disease. We didn't know that. When we started dealing with brain disorders, we found out that within days, weeks, almost always less than a month, we saw results. Now, I'm not saying we had complete turnarounds, but we saw significant results within days or weeks. And so we took that mindset into addressing dementia, and lo and behold, we started having results within weeks. Even the most severe forms of dementia. And it's all about the brain's ability to fix itself. You give the brain what it needs. And I find this very hard for people, especially here. And what I found out, Christina, is that the richer, the more wealthy the environment I say these things to, the more upset they get with me. Because of course, they have access to the best neurologists and professors in Johns Hopkins. So if they told them something else, then who am I? This whippersnapper from a country called Nigeria, which everybody has said all kinds of nonsense. So they find it hard to believe. But so I hope. I know some of you are quite wealthy too. I'm just going to apologize in advance. if you walk out, I will not hold it against you, right? But
That's a free lunch, we'll stick around.
okay, deal. Don't send any okay, some people have sent nasty emails, right, to the organizers and all that. So I'm just going to say, listen, just keep an open mind, because what you've been told may not necessarily be the whole truth about what's happening with dementia and brain disorders. I'm really concerned about this because it's rising over $1 trillion by 2050. And it's affecting, over here it says that black, for the average person is going to double the average person, but for black people it's going to triple. And what we know is that there are 3 groups of people who are most affected by dementia. Blacks, women, and military veterans. They all have twice the rate of dementia as the average, the rest of the population. Now, since I belong to 2 of those groups, I'm particularly concerned. And just in case you're wondering which 2 I'm talking about the fact that I'm black. And a military veteran. Sometimes you got to point these things out. So I don't know. Some people would say, "Why are you laughing?" Right? I mean, why? This is. I don't know. I mean, it's good.
If you did both.
I'm sorry.
If you're military and
Right? That would be hard to do, right? So just a quick crash course, because I feel everybody needs to understand this. That's a normal brain. That's a brain that has shrunken from Alzheimer's disease by about 30%. That's when you get into your 90s, it's expected you lose about 10% altogether. Never that as much as 33%. Okay. Alzheimer's disease is just one of several. There are over 200 different kinds. of dementias. Alzheimer's disease is one of them, but has the largest bulk. And that's the definition. And I love this definition by the Alzheimer's Association. Now, I did volunteer for them for a whole year. And it says it's a degenerative brain disease that is caused by complex brain changes following cell damage. It leads to dementia symptoms that worsen over time. And that's the key right there, it's damage. So if we know where the damage is coming from or where the attacks are coming from, then we can hopefully forestall, fend off, reduce, protect, whatever you need to do for your brain or for your loved one's brain to prevent it from getting worse, right? So you can actually see it. I mean, in my patients, I basically see it because I kind of I've done this so many times, but I've also been able to figure out where all these attacks are coming from. So I developed I call it Dementia's Dirty Dozen. So they all start with the letter I, and they just talk about different things that address where the attacks are coming from. And you might find something about the results of divorce. Trauma would be one of them, obviously, that come into it. And just to put it in perspective, it says cell damage. So I try to kind of show a progression. So the dirty dozen is at the top. Then you have damage or dysfunction. The body tries to take care of the damage. Sometimes it's not successful. The older you get, the less successful it would be. There are attempts at recovery. There are treatments. There are drugs. There's alcohol involved. Maybe you're trying to dull the pain, and so many things that come in and compound the situation. Eventually, there's a drop below 50%. And when I say 50%, I'm talking about energy production. Really, when it comes to dementia, is the drop in brain energy, the energy that is needed to run the brain. We're not talking about vitality now. We're talking about what it takes to keep your brain running. It requires a lot of energy. Once your brain is not meeting once it's not meeting its quota and it drops below 50%, you're going to start having things like mild cognitive impairments. Below 50%, like 40%, we're talking about full-blown dementia. But can you see the progression? Okay, this is really what happens. But what we're told is that somehow, the brain just develops plaques, and those plaques spread all over the brain, and they kill the brain, and then you have dementia, and there's nothing we can do about it, and then you're dead. Why are you spending $15,000 a month to have special care, assisted living, or full memory care? So that is it. Brain energy is it. If we can find a way to keep our brains running on over 70% energy, then you've got a good deal. Here's the problem. Divorce, the effects of trauma, psychological stress is one of the things that drains your brain of energy. So we really need to be able to know how to support. I mean, obviously, how many attorneys are here? I know you're one, 2, 3, 4, okay. And then financial planners. 3, okay. So those are money is finances are a stressful situation, home loss, kids taking care of kids, and of course, parents as well. All of these can compound the issue and drain the brain of energy. So it's very, very important. So it's a shock to the system. Let's talk about some of the things. Let me just throw it out. How many, just shoot out the kind of emotions that are going through your clients' minds. Depression, yes sir. Anxiety. Is that anxiety, financial anxiety? Or
How about anger?
a lot of anger? Anything else?
Guilt.
Paranoia, guilt,
Fear.
fear for the future, or for your kids. Regrets, probably another one as well. So these are the emotions that are going on through the mind. Now these are normal reactions to a problem. So these are not pathologic, right? This is simply your brain reacting to an issue. The problem happens when it becomes prolonged and chronic, and eventually things begin to build up. So those were the emotions. Eventually, what these result in the short term: appetite problem, loss of appetite, listlessness, apathy, sleep problems. By the way, sleep, if you saw it, is one of my dirty dozen. By the way, there's an ebook, free ebook. I have a QR. Are we allowed to give out QR codes? Okay, some people don't know. At the end of this talk, I have a few QR codes just to support the things that I'm talking about. Okay, so you don't think I'm just pulling them out of the air or ChatGPT. I mean, I will confess that ChatGPT helped me in this presentation, but there is some background knowledge I have. So, like I said, emotions are normal, but as the thing progresses, maybe there's increased tension between the spouses, the children are getting into the fray, financial considerations come in, and it begins to build, right? Alcohol abuse, poor diet. Almost nobody is going to eat a healthy diet when they're going through a lot of stress, right? Many times they turn to comfort foods. So, this affected me too. I mean, I hate to admit this, but years ago, when I had to return to Nigeria, I was here for about 10 years. Lived in a place called Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I learned a lot of the things that I am beginning to apply today. I learned a lot of those things when I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then suddenly they wouldn't renew my visa or my green card, and I had to go home. And if you know anything about Nigeria, we're very proud people. Usually when somebody returns, a son returns from the Western world, usually comes home like a conquering prince, bring all the spoils of war, you're very rich, you've got a family and all that. But I didn't have any of that. I didn't even have a wife. And I felt I had disappointed a lot of people. I felt there was a lot of regrets, a lot of guilt. And all of those things that I showed you earlier, like the fatigue, the gut issues. I started having severe headaches. I couldn't sleep well. I felt like they had plugged in a cable into me. I was just draining out all my energy. It was terrible. So I have an idea of kind of like, suicide. I was having suicidal thoughts. I had to rebuild my life back in Nigeria. But I got to tell you, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Now I'm not saying that there's a silver lining on every cloud, but in my case it was, because it was an opportunity for me to put into practice all the things that I had learned while here. Practicalize them, working with kids and adults, and really finding out how they worked. And if it hadn't been for that, I would never have learned many of the secrets that we are talking about today, and we would never be able to address things like dementia or strokes. So let's talk about what's happening. Basically, this is a picture of the brain. I know it's a little skewed right now. The brain is literally on fire, especially when we're talking about stress. It's literally, they call it neuroinflammation. There is a lot going on, especially for the very, very distressing cases. The brain is literally on fire, whether it's even depression. And I like this quote. It's not just something that happens in the brain. What is happening in the brain is affecting the rest of the body. And that's why this quote says, depression, first of all, maims or paralyzes the mind, then it kills the body, because it shuts things down. The brain is the master control system of the body. If your brain isn't working, your body is not working. So let's talk about some of this. So it affects different systems. Obviously, it affects the nervous system. Gosh, someone's going to get fired. So there's supposed to be a picture there. But anyway, so obviously it affects sleep. Let's go back to the nervous system real quick. It affects sleep. It affects regulation. It affects gut health. Because again, the brain controls everything. I think people underestimate the influence and the impact of the brain. It also affects the cardiovascular, the rhythm and the rate of the heart. But also it affects the blood vessels, the health of the arteries. And by the way, if your arteries are tight, as a result of, and that happens as a result of stress, it's going to eventually result in damage to the blood vessels, high blood pressure, and eventually heart attacks. Can increase your risks of heart attacks and strokes. Yes, sir. Thank you, Joe. That's just the picture here, what we're after. So this is a normal, this kind of like a cross section. These plaques, the yellow things over there, can build up over time as a result of stress. It's worse among black people, by the way. Just a quick thing here, over 80% of all dementias have a cardiovascular system involvement, be they Alzheimer's disease or not. You're not being told those things. It's very important that blood pressure, blood vessels are healthy. Okay? And again, stress can cause problems where that is concerned. We're going to talk about menopause, but the endocrine system obviously refers to the hormonal systems. Now, the hormones play a huge role in protecting the brain. Also, they're important for energy, for sleep, for overall well-being. And so, the brain isn't working, it's going to affect the hormonal system, it's going to affect the immune system. You find out that many people tend to have, is this your experience? Does anybody know? I mean, many times, people going through a divorce, or especially a stressful one, tend to have other illness. Either the illnesses are exacerbated, or they show up for the first time. What was your name? What's your name?
Scott.
Scott, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, right now I have a client that's having all kinds of gut issues, and he's going through an extremely stressful divorce. And although there are some physical components, he was like recently diagnosed with this SIBO, this
Small intestinal bowel overgrowth.
but there's a large stress component if you kind of look up that illness. I'm not saying that it's all stress and not a physical thing, but certainly, and he's lost weight. It's just you can see the toll of the divorce week after week as I meet with him.
Yeah. What are you doing, suggesting for him to do to deal with those things?
There's so many different angles of my coaching, because there's a co-parenting element, there's a parenting element, then for the health part, there's a stress management component, focusing on exercise, relaxation training, meditation, all of those types of
Got it.
interventions.
That's super important. Super important. There might be a place to add to that, where we use talk about specific nutraceuticals which can help to repair and protect the gut, improve his ability to relax and sleep better. Because the better sleep he has, obviously, the better the quality of sleep, the less the impact of the stress on the nervous system and the gut. But there's a lot to be done there. Thank you for that, Scott. So yeah, you mentioned the gut, and that's the gut as well. Here's another one that I find people tend to overlook, and that's the musculoskeletal system. We didn't know this. I mean, most doctors, probably even neurologists who treat dementia, probably wouldn't tell you this, or they wouldn't know this. I just learned about it a few years ago. Is that the muscles, the health of the muscles is in direct relation to the health of the brain. So in other words, if you have strong, healthy, active muscles, I'm not talking about the Arnold Schwarzenegger kind. I'm talking about basically stressing your muscles on a regular basis. That translates to healthy chemicals that help to build the brain and help to protect the brain. So people are now looking at scans and all that. They're finding out that people who don't. It's not a question of. They're now saying it's not as much about fat as it is about muscle. So you may be overweight, but if you have some degree of healthy muscle, you are probably more protected than someone who is not overweight, who has very flabby muscles and maybe not have all that fat. So it's a muscle problem we're beginning to find out. So I really encourage people to pay more attention to strengthening their muscles. There's a lot to be said about that as well. Obviously, when your brain is not working properly, you're not able to excrete and remove toxins. So there's a chance, there's a higher risk that toxins will begin to build in the brain and body if your brain isn't working properly. So what happens is that these emotions affect the brain. The brains are now affected. It now affects the rest of the body, the systems of the body. Reciprocally, the systems of the body now turn back and affect the brain negatively. So it's like a chain reaction. And somewhere along the way, you've got to step in. I want to say a few things about middle age, because it seems as if, where would you say most divorces happen? 20s to 30s? 40s to 50s?
It's gray divorce now.
It's great divorce not happening more.
50s, 60s.
50s and 60s.
I'm
Yikes.
tired of that person. All these years, I'm done.
So that's rising now? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow.
And how about Meadow divorce?
Meadow divorce.
Menopause.
Menopause.
Women going crazy and kicking their husbands out. I'm tired. It's happening. I'm telling you, it's happening.
As one of the guys
That's
in here,
right, too.
you're making me uncomfortable. I'm worried I'm gonna be like, and they get like hit from
Look it up. You can find it. It's on
I
there.
should look up Meadow divorce and I'll see.
And we'll see it. You'll see it.
Oh, yeah, that's
Tired of
crazy.
hustle, too.
But we've been having menopause since the dawn of time, though. Why is that? Because what is it? TikTok? What's
Gosh, there's been so many changes we did back.
That's crazy. Anyway, middle age is a time when things kind of like they plateau in your mid-30s. When I say plateau, I'm talking about normal physical strength, normal brain health strength, and all that. But after the mid-30s, things begin to drop. So everything, all the systems I just mentioned, even bone health, muscle health, they tend to plateau. So when you compound a very stressful situation like divorce in the middle of in midlife, it tends to be less well cushioned, let's say, than if you had it in your 20s and 30s. The body has a better ability to bounce back from a stressful situation if you're in your 20s as opposed to your 40s. Does that make sense? Okay. Then of course, so I had this quick picture here that's showing the different things that happen. Probably not going to go into it, but it does affect everything from metabolism to sleep to short-term memory problems. Because you got to remember, the parts of the brain that are responsible for memory are also the parts of the brain that are the most sensitive to stress. I mean, the most important, I don't know why it is, I would think the opposite. The most delicate, the most sensitive, the most complicated, the most important parts of the brain, right? They should be the most protected, but they tend to be the least protected. And they tend to be the first to go when there's a stressful situation.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does your body understand? I guess we can all agree there's bad stress and then there might be good stress.
Yeah.
Does your body understand the difference, or all stress is freaking equal?
That's a good question. Does the body understand the difference? It's kind of like the same chemicals that are produced, because it's basically stress. The body's response to stress is to get geared up for a fight, to handle the situation, and blah blah. But the problem is, and this is the big deal, is when it's chronic. The body was never designed to have cortisol levels be elevated for more than a day or a couple of days. Once it becomes a grind, weeks, months, the body was not designed for that. So that's when it obviously becomes bad stress. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about mental divorce. No, I'm just kidding. So remember I talked about brain energy. So this is a graph here. Again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of ensuring that you do something on a regular basis to ensure that your brain is getting enough energy, and we'll probably discuss a little bit about that. But over a period of time, so this is the age line here, so that goes up to 90 years, and that's the percentage. I mean, this is just a rough estimate, right? So in your 20s, your brain is enjoying 100% energy supply to the brain. The brain is working really well, and that's why it does all the things it can do. You sleep well, you remember things quickly, you remember words, blah, 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 blah. The blue line is for men, the pink line is for women. So there's obviously a gradual decline in brain energy, as it is for a lot of other things. What happens at the time of menopause, which is about, on average, 50, 51, is that there's a steep drop in brain energy levels, especially in the parts that have to do with memory and cognition, right? Now, for some women, it is really distressing. Now, it depends on a lot of things like your genetics, your lifestyle, which part of the world you live, your diet, and so on. But on average, there's a significant drop. Some women tend to recover somewhat, and then eventually they are at par with men. But most women don't. And here's the tragic thing. I would never believe this. Most OBGYNs have no clue how to handle this. They just say, it's in your head, just go relax, take an antidepressant pill, you know, sleep better, yeah, nothing. Zero. In the greatest country on the planet. That's insane. Okay, that is insane. So anyway, so we had to figure out, we don't have that many OBGYNs, and we're having women coming to us with all these menopausal issues, so we had to figure out how to, without doing any tests, because we couldn't get through the tests, we had to figure out how to help their bodies make these hormones, and not just make the hormones, ensure that they make the hormones in the right balance. Because part of the problem with menopause is that imbalance between progesterone and estrogen. That imbalance itself is what causes many of the symptoms that we see. Everything from hot flashes to mood swings and so on. So if you could balance out those hormones, we could somewhat reduce what do you call it again? Menodivorce, right? We could somewhat, I mean, that is gonna stick for a while, I promise you. So, and then the green line, obviously, if you can read that, it says, if there's intervention, so if you have an OBGYN who knows what they're doing, they'll be able to help this person out and maybe save the marriage, right? So, all right, I just had this diagram here just to show how important estrogen is. Again, you lose a lot of estrogen during menopause. Now, the advantage men have is that we can turn our testosterone into estrogen. So even though our testosterone is also reduced, then please do not leave your phones in your pockets. You always want to keep them on the table somewhere. There's a steep decline in testosterone worldwide because of cell phone usage. Remember, these are very, very powerful computers. You got to remember them. And they're transmitting and receiving signals from all over the place. The genitals against the brain too as well. So you got to just be aware of these things. You do not want to keep your phones in your pocket all the time. If you must do that. And if you must keep your phone in your pocket for whatever reason, make it a habit to just turn on airplane mode or something, because that might reduce the frequency that is being generated. Okay. All right. So that was about to say I won't charge you anything extra. Oh wait. Yeah, no. I forgot. All right, so estrogen is important for the bones, important for the muscles, and a whole bunch of other things. So once you lose that estrogen, you're losing a whole bunch of other things. People don't realize that. So this is the other picture. Remember, this one is colorful, this one is more dark. It shows you all the things that happen when estrogen levels drop. I had this picture here. It's probably in the wrong position, but I was trying to emphasize the importance of muscles.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
All the food's going to be coming in, and for the most part, I know where they go. But I know I have a large Caesar right here, and I have two shrimp tacos with sweet potato waffle fries. First, who to raise hands?
You need some help?
I'm just going to want to take a that table right there. I'm just going to pull it out as I go. Sorry, did you get sweet tacos?
Yeah, but you can.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Here we go. Yeah, I was like, most of them are usually all the same with the sweet potato waffle fry. Shrimp tacos with sweet potato. And this one with you. You're welcome.
So I always encourage women, you need to start building. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter how old you are, whether it's 40s, in your 90s, whatever. You need to have someone teach you what to do. Especially your leg muscles, because hip fractures are very big among white, I specifically say white women. Black women don't have that problem as much. Something about bone density, it's a genetic thing too as well. But white women have much higher rates of hip fractures. Now once you have a hip fracture, That shakes a lot of things up.
Thank you.
Talk about a shock. Talk about a shock to the system. Some women will never recover. They will never leave the hospital and they will die within a year. And that's at least 30% of those who have a hip fracture. So you want to ensure that you are strengthening. You want to ensure that you are strengthening your bones and your muscles. You're doing what it takes. Okay? I have this picture here. Janelle is on the left. Jill is her daughter on the right. Janelle is in her 80s. Jill is in her 50s. So I was talking about women and dementia to a group in Tulsa, and Janelle walks up to me after the talk, and she gives me a big smile, and she does this, and then she says, "Feel that," and I did. And I just don't remember what we talked about after that. All I know is I kept on saying, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, ma'am." That's it. I'm not going to get myself in trouble. Is that all, Jenna?
Yes, I'm just going to grab the Maryland crab, and then your food is going to come about a little bit later when you're just
Awesome. Well, everybody give Jenna a round of applause. Good job, Jenna.
Thank you.
Good job. All right. So, this is my area because I'm really concerned. I think the easiest thing, the most effective thing, I mean, as a psychologist, you have to sit down with the patient and you've got to find out where the pain points are and how to talk to them, teach them skills. I mean, that's hard to do, especially when someone is going through a very stressful situation. They have to listen to you first, right? The financial advisor has to go through a lot of different things. The attorney too has to deal with the conflict in the parties. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. You know what? To me, I think mine is the easiest of all. Because really, all we need to do is find a way to convince, to let the clients and the patients know what is going on in their brains and their bodies, and basically just create, so to speak, not a meal plan as much, but a nutrient formulation plan. I really don't trust diets all that much. I am of the opinion that you really can't get all the nutrients your brain needs simply by eating healthy, whatever that means. In my opinion, there's really no such thing as a balanced diet, right? And even those who claim they're on a balanced diet, when you really get down to it, they're really not. For example, most of the food that we eat, if you know anything about the agricultural practices today, most of the soil is devoid of all the different nutrients, much less the the bugs that are supposed to be in the soil. A lot of these things have been farmed out, so to speak. You are not getting the same amount of nutrients that the textbooks say you're getting. So it's good to eat healthy. You got to do that. But do not for a single solitary second think that your body, certainly not your brain, don't think that you're getting enough to keep your brain and your body healthy. You are just not. I'm sorry to break it to you. You are just not getting enough. So I always encourage people that try to take a supplement. A perfect example is vitamin D. We now know how important the vitamin D is to the brain, to protect the brain from psychological stress and a few other things. You cannot, especially if you live in the Northeast where we are, you cannot get enough vitamin D during the winter. That's been proven. You're not getting enough. You're certainly not getting enough of food. So the only alternative is what? Supplementation. People find this hard to, especially again, the smarter, the professors, the rich people, they're like, no, that's not true. We can get everything we want from diet. I don't know what to tell them. So these are some of the things that are lost, that is going on in your client's body. They're losing out on. These are very, very, very important nutrients for the body. Vitamin C, magnesium, calcium, zinc, vitamin B5, and some key amino acids. And it's not only those, there's a whole bunch of others. I just don't want to bore you with these details. But even if it was just magnesium is important for everything from sleep to muscular contractions to having a healthy blood vessels, to having a healthy heart. And what happens with stress is that it's like remember when I told you earlier about how when I was going through that stressful period, it felt like a cable had been plugged into me and it was just sucking out my life force? Well, what happens with stress is that you're just peeing out and you're getting rid of something about the whole disruption in how the body works. Your body starts getting rid of these vital nutrients for some reason. So they're going through a lot, and it's one of the best things you can do for them is to encourage them to go on get certain targeted nutrients. Some of them you have to do tests for, obviously. Some really you don't. But, I mean, this has been so well researched. It has been so well researched that certain things just like they should be on these things. One of them is magnesium. Another one is zinc. I call them the non-negotiables. I have about 7, which I take every single day, and I encourage other people to take every single day too. These are relatively cheap. They can be gotten on Amazon. Actually, I have a page on my website where I direct people to, so they can get it off Amazon, so they can get the right brands. Now, these are the same brands that I use for kids. We found out work with kids. And one thing you know about kids is that if you treat them, there's no placebo response. There's no psychological gymnastics you can play on a 2-year-old. It's either it works or it doesn't work. So we had to figure out what worked, and then we just started applying that to adults, and so we started getting the results. As a matter of fact, we're doing a study now on magnesium. Remember I talked about magnesium. We did a study, it's an ongoing study where we're working with some of the most severe forms of cerebral palsy. And all we're giving them is magnesium. And 4 out of 5 of them are showing significant improvements just from magnesium. You would, I mean, if you went to Johns Hopkins, I'm not knocking them, the best hospital in the world, they would go do a series of tests, and they'll do a series of physical therapies, and you will not get the kind of results that we're getting on that simple thing. Because the brain wants what the brain wants. If it's not getting it, it will not improve. Now, maybe marginally it will, but it will not. So again, you need to do something to support it. I have this book here. It's a fascinating book, but she's not a doctor. She's a brain journalist, and so it's called The Angel and the Assassin. It's basically talking about a certain cell in the brain called the microglia. It's like a support cell in the brain, and it's like an immune cell, and it's there. It's like a sentinel, a guard, a security force. It protects the brain cells. So it's an immune cell that protects the brain cell. Now if it gets triggered, maybe there's an infection, it fights to protect the brain. What happens is that once it's overstimulated, like if there's chronic stress, chronic bad stress, it gets permanently triggered. And it keeps on generating inflammation and bad chemicals that can go on for decades. So what they're finding out is like kids, like maybe the kids who had sexual abuse or physical abuse as kids, maybe they forgot about it after a while, maybe they didn't, but they find out decades later, 20, 30, 40 years later, they're finding out the results, the ongoing results of that triggering, and that's really by that cell called the microglia. Same thing with even in adults. If it is not handled, my point is this. Sometimes when you have such a severe form of stress, or as a result of maybe a very bad breakup, those little cells could be triggered, and they can wreak havoc for years on end that can put you in a position to have things down the line like chronic depression and eventually dementia. Okay? So these things should not be taken for, I feel like you need to attack, once you're dealing with clients, you've got to attack it from every conceivable angle. So this is what I do for my patients, or my clients. Remember I said the brain is on fire. This is not theory, this is actually what's going on. The brain is on fire, so I try to put out the flames. So number one is, I do not use medications at all.
I'm one of those crazy doctors. I don't have a problem with medications. I just feel more comfortable using nutrients and what are known as nutraceuticals. Is everybody familiar with that term? Okay, so nutraceuticals. So you know what pharmaceuticals are, you know what nutritional supplements are. So nutraceuticals are midway, I like to call them supplements on steroids, right? They are very, very potent, highly concentrated, highly purified, more, shall we say, bioavailable. In other words, they are targeted towards fixing particular problems, maybe in the brain, maybe in the guts, that work very effectively and very quickly. So I use nutraceuticals and supplements, like magnesium and all those things, to address the brain. These patients almost all of them have a problem sleeping. So you want to take, I'm very aggressive about sleep. Very aggressive, because sleep is when your body and the brain repair themselves. If they're having disrupted sleep, if they're not enjoying their sleep, if they're not having enough deep sleep, that repair process and the detoxification process will not happen. And if the brain accumulates toxins, that is another risk factor for dementia. Okay? Obviously, I've talked about nutrients and balancing the hormones. The body can make the hormones if you give it the help. We give it the raw materials to do that. Now, an OBGYN who knows what they're doing will test your hormones and then now give you the hormones that you are lacking. So that might be more helpful, but the problem is that where are you going to find those OBGYNs? They don't grow on trees, I can tell you that. They're very far and in between. We want to ensure that people are doing stuff to build their muscles, because their muscles are being broken down. I can tell you that. If you're under stress, your muscles are being broken down. And like we said earlier, the muscles are the protectors of the brain. I would say get out in the sun as much as possible, expose yourself to nature, because there are healing factors in the trees, the leaves, and the sunlight, and the grass, and the ground that you cannot get anywhere else. So, and then I have down there insulin sensitivity. That's about sugar and ensuring that you don't have, that's another topic entirely, but it's a big issue altogether. So just a few more things about what we do. I do private consultations. I have patients in Nigeria and around the world where most of my patients are virtual, and actually most of my clients are not the patients themselves. They're the caregivers of the patients. So those are really my clients, because many times I deal with very severe forms of dementia, but I also deal with issues like menopause and hormonal problems as well. I would love to speak, so if you have, especially to middle-aged women. Oh, there she is. Come on here. You guys are my target, I gotta tell you, because I think you have been severely short. I mean, what's a good word to say that can say without being would be politically correct. Overlooked. Shortchanged. Shafted. Whoa. That's a bad one, right? Short end of the stick, how's that? Okay. Twice, I mean, how can you be twice as likely to have dementia and no one's talking about it? Everywhere I go, it's most times they're hearing that for the first time. And it's not, people just say it's because women live longer. That's a good thing, right? But it's not the only reason. There are like 12 other reasons. People have no idea. I've mentioned a few of them here. Anyway, we need to start educating women before they get into menopause. And if they're in the menopause time, yeah, we've got to educate you as well about the things that you need to do to help your brain, and the things that you need to stop doing to help your brain. It goes both ways. And most people don't know either of them. And so I'm like, we got to talk a little more about these things. So anyway, this is kind of like things I do. Like I kind of go over the records, and we kind of map out the game plan. And the difference with me is that you have access to me 24/7. Well, maybe not 24/7, but at least I'll get back to you in 24 hours. Unlike with most doctors, where you have to get an appointment for the next month at the least next month. But because what I do is I have to. There's a lot of hand holding involved. There's a lot of back and forth. Try this for about a week,
then we increase the dose, and we increase the dose. If there are any issues, we back off, we combine different things, just so that we're getting the results we need to get, like a good sleep, less anxiety, for instance, less hyperactivity, and so on and so forth. So let me just end by saying, this is your responsibility. It's your responsibility. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. It's your responsibility to keep this from becoming this. Hopefully we've talked about some of the things that you need to know, or that your clients need to know. What divorce does is that it increases the vulnerability to other more severe brain conditions, especially the most stressful ones. So it's very important that you take it seriously, or your clients take it seriously. And it all comes down to, bottom line, energy levels in the brain. You want to ensure that your brain energy levels are optimal. So you want to go from that to this. And with that, I say thank you very much for this time. Thank you very much. Questions, or do I sit down?
No, that was great. Questions, guys?
I have a question. From personal experience in my family,
That's right.
do you ever do an MRI when you're looking at onset of dementia?
Do I personally, or is it in general?
You recommend it, you prescribe it? And the reason I'm asking is, my husband was demonstrating some dementia-like behaviors and had an MRI and found some plaque on the brain and a shunt hole in the brain and tube down because the spinal fluid was not moving
Ooh, okay.
properly.
Okay.
And that's what was causing this pressure.
Okay.
And he's a new person with, I mean, it's forever.
Yeah.
A neurosurgeon and a regular surgeon, and it just dumps the stuff down into your abdomen.
Yeah.
So it keeps that moving. And it can be dialed down 5 times. It's a magnetic tube.
Okay.
And the neurosurgeon just puts a thing on your head and does this, and it opens it up, opens the tube bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that should, it seems to me, always be considered when somebody is beginning to show signs of some dementia. It was a real lesson.
Yes, ideally. So what you're talking about is known as normal pressure hydrocephalus.
Syphilis, I guess.
Yeah, and that's when there's a fluid buildup in the brain. It's not, for some reason, it's not getting out. It's not circulating like it should, and that's hence the shots. And that has saved lives, saved brains for sure. Some people don't have the ability to diagnose that, unfortunately. So if you're asking if I do, usually what happens is that most patients who come to me after they've gone everywhere else. And they have all the tests, they've done all the tests, they haven't seen results, and so they come to me. So I already have a background of what they know, so I just basically go ahead and treat based on their symptoms and whatever medical record they have. But yes, it's good to have a baseline for all these things. It's just that these things are not, I mean, they have access to it over here, obviously I would recommend it. But like I said, I work in the third world country, so I mean, that's an entire salary. And we don't have insurance the way you all have it here. But that's a good point, thank you. Either the talk was absolutely fantastic.
It was.
Oh wow, thank you. You guys are being nice.
I have a question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
when you're meeting with your patients or
Yes.
and you're changing the dosage, you first start somewhere
Yeah.
and then you kind of figure out, all right, we'll change it or increase it, decrease it.
Yes.
How do you determine how much to increase? Like, are you getting blood work that helps you kind of make those that determination, or how does that work?
Now, when it comes to nutrients, honestly, I gotta tell you, even another blood work, especially for things like magnesium and potassium, they really don't give you blood work doesn't really give you an accurate figure because a lot of it is trapped in the cells. So let's say like 1% is in the blood, 99% is in the cell. So even if they did a blood test, it wouldn't really give you a good idea of what's going on. So yeah, it's a little bit of an art too, but you gotta remember that these are nutrients that are, the safety margin is magnificent. It's really, really high. And I have an idea of what the safety, what the, so I look at what's the regular recommendation, and I gotta tell you, for most of it is way lower. That's what working with kids helped me do. I got to realize that the recommendations are way too low, especially if there's injury. If there's injury to the brain, it needs so much more. So short answer to your question, because I've done this so many times before, and because I know that the safety margin is so wide, I have a lot of room to play with. If anything is going to happen, it's going to happen. I mean, I would have seen it happen way ahead of time. So I know that's not a really good answer, right? Because I know everybody wants to have every single thing tested. I gotta tell you that there's some things. When I started my practice, I started testing everything. And of course, we would send stuff to take the blood samples to South Africa because Nigeria couldn't do it. We'd send some to Europe, and it would come back. And quite frankly, it did not really change my course of action treatment-wise. It didn't. So after a while, I was like, let's just help them save their money. The cost of treatment is expensive on its own. Let's just focus on getting their kids better. So again, I know that's not a very satisfactory answer.
This is FDA regulated?
No, the FDA does not regulate nutrients at all. They regulate drugs, do not regulate nutrients. So yes, I know I'm in a very hazy field.
Holistic, it's called holistic, right?
Yeah, that's one of the problems.
What are your non-negotiables you said that you take?
Good question. Yeah. So there's 7 of them. You can take a. So okay, this is a page of the. This is my book, Dementia's Dirty Dozen. So if you want to do it, you take a picture, and you can download it free of charge, where I kind of explain each of them. All right. When you're ready, I'll switch to the next one. Thank you.
It's making you download a QR coding app.
Your iPhone doesn't have one?
Yes, it does.
I thought it did. Did you try using iPhone?
I used it on camera.
Yeah.
No, you need to use your QR.
Yeah, just use the camera, that's all.
So what? Try it. Just remind me.
Yeah.
You have to get a QR reader.
Ooh, you don't have one.
What year is it? It's an iPhone 15.
Scott's about my size.
It's an iPhone 15.
It's supposed to show.
Yeah, but it's a separate app.
Yeah, it's
That's
loading. It's loading now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
QR lap is.
Yeah, so there's QR.
They don't be able to pick that up.
So I have to download it.
Yeah, download the QR reader.
Mine came with it. Mine's 11.
So wait a second.
Did you?
Keep it up.
Lots of kids work.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Thank you, appreciate it.